It's time to live life through the eyes of fit people so that you too can live a fit life yourself. This is Fit Because. I'm one of your hosts, Jennifer Zerling, but you can call me Jay-Z. I'm a fitness and age management expert, author, speaker, as well as an international health advocate.
And I'm your other host, George Veter. I'm an entrepreneur, cattle rancher, fitness enthusiast, and a 6-time rodeo champion who has a huge amount of knowledge to share with you in the area of self-improvement.
Oh, he does. Get ready to learn how to bridge the gap between knowing what to do and doing what it takes to become physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially fit.
You ready, Jay-Z?
Oh, I'm ready, George.
Let's dive in.
I am so excited that we are back, Jay-Z, with the awesome George Veter, and we are going to discuss with you today a topic that I think is super important around this time. And by no means are George and I taking any sort of political stance at all. Our number one goal is to give you usable, actionable tools to be successful during these rough times in this country. And that topic is being the change you wish to see. So the key word is being. And I think this is going to be a great topic to listen to and a wonderful topic for us to talk about because something tells me you and I are going to learn something new as we talk to each other about this.
Yeah. And Jen, this is, you brought this up before as a topic that we needed to handle just because we live at a time when there's this heightened polarization, kind of to venomous levels, for sure more so than any time that I can remember in my life experience. And so this program that we are offering to people is not about political ideas or ideology or anything like that. We want to empower people to more successfully pursue goals that will enrich their lives and help them to be who they feel they can be, right? But
despite what's going on outside of their house.
Right. So the idea of this vodcast is to navigate the current environment in an empowering way.
Yes.
So that we don't get sucked into kind of the negativity that a lot of people are just getting fed constantly. Right.
Absolutely. And being a coach, I see the negativity bleeding into personal areas of their life, including career. And this is one of the biggest things that I do with my coaching clients is to empower them to call within themselves to see exactly what they want to do for themselves and kind of close their ears and their eyes for a moment to just rechannel their energies so that they can shift. So with that said, I guess I'll start off. When I was in high school, George, it was all about being popular. Yeah. And I remember looking to the popular girls, the cute girls that came from rich homes. We were middle class. So I looked up to those girls because they came from parents who were very affluent and it wasn't necessarily the materialism that I was attracted to. It was the way they carried themselves, the way they articulated their words, and I was very attracted to that. So there was those friends. Then there were the jocks who I loved, so I was friends with them. And then there were the geeks that shared their notes. So I had a love for everybody, essentially. And I feel that way now, despite what's going on in our world. So when people say to me, how do you stay so positive? I mean, by no means am I perfect. There's days that I feel my lows, but at the end of the day, as long as you possess love, and it starts with ourselves, then, it's very easy to share that with other people. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. We were talking in the car on the way here about being a logical thinker, and you had some really great points on that because I remember when I managed the Sports Club LA, and I was spoken to by upper management and how they were just like, listen, you're a great manager, but you have to take out the emotion. And at first I was like, I'm a woman. What am I supposed to do? I mean, women are emotional. But I had to really learn how to look at logical thinking. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something I've developed. And that was over 10 years ago. So obviously I'm in a better place now. So let's touch upon that. What is logical thinking? And let's kind of bring that conversation from the car into this podcast.
Okay, great. First of all, logical thinking to you is different than logical thinking to me. As a human family, that's going to go across the board, a huge spectrum. Mm-hmm. So what I have learned to embrace as I have evolved personally and continue, of course, to evolve, need a lot of involvement still. But
As he sits up tall.
But I realize that truth is what we decide it is. We choose our own truth, right? And then we gather, once we decide what we want to believe, we gather evidences to support that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in relationship to today's context, we can look at the world today and we can endorse certain political ideas or ideologies about whether the world is good or bad or getting better or getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what we embrace as truth or choose to believe, we can find evidence to support us, right?
Right.
Just like religious leanings are the same way. Once we decide what we're going to embrace for our religious foundation, then we start looking for evidences, right, to build our case, to strengthen our faith, right? So in today's discussion, what we want people to feel empowered by is that we can decide that the world is a great place. And we can decide that we have the opportunity to contribute and influence in a positive way the world we live in, and that we aren't just at the effect of it all.
Mm-hmm.
That we have power here.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to give me a little lenience here, a couple of things that I read as we prepared for this vodcast.
Yeah.
There's a Georgetown University study on poverty. And as I asked, so I've been aware of this, I'll tell you the findings of this Georgetown study, which I looked for support and got a lot of evidence of. But if we ask people, just in random, is the world getting more impoverished? Or is there more poverty in the world now than there used to be? Is that a growing trend, or is that a trend that is diminishing? Okay, I asked multiple people that this week. Everybody had the same answer. Well, poverty's getting worse.
And how many people did you ask?
At least 10 that I just counted off
10
in my
people
mind.
you asked.
All of them.
That's an interesting anecdotal review.
Yeah, so that being said,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in my own mind, just based on the media messages that I hear when I do turn on the news, seems like, geez, things are bad and getting worse in that regard. Okay, so here's the study that just kind of opened my eyes to that maybe not being the case in reality.
Because you're looking for that reality.
I'm looking
okay.
for reasons why this is a world that I'm in love with and that I can embrace and be empowered by and empower to.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I learned that in 1970, and I remember as a kid, because remember I was born in the 60s, so I remember as a kid in the 70s, I remember that the first time that the Western world here through media started seeing images of abstract poverty in Africa and other places, that were struggling more with that, of course, than we were, or we are. And I remember, and all of us can probably relate to this vision in some form. Just in your mind's eye, think of a little African baby sitting there with a bloated, distended belly due to starvation, and flies swirling around his or her head with an empty bowl.
Very sad.
And I remember that image on TV and on National Geographic and different ways that entered my awareness. And so I think of that poverty. Now, in the Georgetown study, the poverty that we're talking about is defined by those people in that most desperate situation in the world where they live on $1 a day or less,
Mm-hmm.
adjusted by inflation, because we're going 1970 to now.
Sure.
To talk about what's happened. Now, based on that standard, there's been 2 billion people on this planet that have been lifted out of poverty, which is an 80% reduction in poverty at that level
Mm-hmm.
in the last 45 years. And that's during our lifetime, or my lifetime. You're not old enough to have that full spectrum, but I am. So
Yeah.
in my lifetime, we've had the greatest reduction of abstract poverty in the history of the world.
Have you seen any specific changes as a result of that? Or are you saying that you still see evidence that we're still that impoverished compared to 1970?
Well, I
Does it seem like the same level based on what's being
Well, what
given
I'm
to
saying
us?
is we're moving in the right direction. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that we still have a problem with poverty. I'm not discounting that at all.
Of course.
And everybody needs to be aware and everybody needs to contribute towards ending poverty in the world, right?
For an indefinite period of time. And
Right,
that's from a
right.
marketing standpoint,
Right.
sight out of mind,
But the
right?
things that the world is evolving to are contributing to that being reduced, which is a wonderful
Which is
thing,
great.
right? It's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, economists, in listing the reasons for that, for poverty being diminished at that level, at the most abstract level,
Yes.
are A, globalization. That's number one. 2, free trade, free markets spreading around the world. 3, property rights that we didn't have before in many countries where we had the worst case scenarios. And then 4, the rule of law has been improved by people fighting for more equality in that way and for human rights. And then number 5 is entrepreneurship. Now that's not right or left. That's just economists in general trying to figure out why that metric is improving.
Right.
Okay. So that gives you one idea or one example of how we can look at the world as a world that's evolving, that is wonderful becoming, that it's not linear. In all these efforts that we need to continue to devote ourselves to make this a better place to live, it's not going to be a linear path, right? There's start, stops. It goes like this, right?
Sure.
So we need to keep fighting that fight. But in general, the trends are encouraging. We should be excited about that, right?
Yes.
We talked in a previous podcast about pollution as another example. In the 70s, again, because this is the context of me from being a child to an adult and what has changed, we had very few environmental controls, right? Environmental awareness until all of a sudden we were in emergency mode. Here in Southern California, pollution was choking people and we had a big problem with it. Well, due to awareness, the world is struggling with much less problem with pollution than we had before. We're making forward progress. Our emission systems, of course, are so much more efficient that way and less pollution orientated. And the way that we manufacture and the way that we do business, everything is geared towards limiting pollution, solving for that, and it's working.
Right. So, but on an individual level,
Right.
based on those two examples, which are great examples because they're huge movements in a huge direction that people want to get involved with. The whole Hurricane Harvey, people are like, well, how can I contribute to get these people out of this mess?
Right.
So, be the change you wish to see. How can people right now contribute to a cause that really bothers them?
Okay. Well, first of all, we look at the world in a way that's empowering to ourselves and others, right? We have to start with ourselves. So if we have to control the content that we enter our minds. Now, media, you and I talked about this, Jay-Z, but media has a tendency to play on that emotion of fear and negativity because it's powerful, because it sucks people in, right? It's disproportionate to other emotions that we feel. And so they leverage that, right? To make us good customers, clients, that we buy products or listen to content.
But ultimately, because I was telling George, I worked for NBC as an intern back in college. And the thing with media is if everything is positive, then people aren't necessarily going to come back because then you're not really missing anything.
Yeah.
So, and there's like a whole new expression. You ever hear of FOMO?
No.
So it's the fear of missing out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what media is doing on a lot of different levels, which is smart because otherwise we wouldn't even watch it most of the time.
Well, I was thinking that last night. I attended a benefit in Fresno for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and there were 900 people there. All the community leaders were there. Is this huge event, raised a big 6-figure sum last night towards this effort, and there's over 1,000 kids being served in my community with Big Brothers, Big Sisters. But I noticed there's no TV cameras there. There wasn't any news coverage of that. I mean, there might be a blip today, but that's not the news, right?
Right.
But if you would have turned on the 10 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, all the bad stuff that happened in Fresno was definitely reported and made the headline, right?
Yeah.
But none of these wonderful humanitarian good things were reported. So when I have clients of mine in my business that tell me that I'll ask them, okay, what type of news do you listen to? What TV shows do you listen to in my discovery process to learn more about them? Yeah, I do.
That's so
And,
smart.
and I will have clients that tell me I listen to news all the time, right?
Ah,
Or I listen to whatever, Fox News or MSNBC all day long. I just tell them, okay, it's important to be informed, but limit yourself
yeah,
because it's not typically an empowering thing in your life to listen to what's wrong with the world all day long, right? So we need to control the content entering our mind, and we have the power to do that. I need to do that. I listen to stuff every day to get me on a higher plane of thinking, right?
You have to.
Okay. Also, I believe that as far as being the change we want to see in the world, we have the power to set an example. We have the power to show people what's possible in this wonderful world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
We have the power to show people how we can empathetically search for understanding for others that don't think the way that we think. Right.
So let's give a couple of examples over the last couple of days. What are some things that you personally did to kind of step outside of being the change that you wish to see in others?
Yeah. I would say, well, every day,
Mm-hmm.
as far as in pursuing my goals and those people that are around me, that are in my sphere of influence, I'm conscious all the time of trying to show them that they can do more, be more through the way that I live and these principles that we're teaching that have empowered me. Okay, so that's kind of just that's been in my life for a long time. It's been a thrust for me. I want to do that. I love that idea of inspiring people because I've been so blessed by the inspiration of others that I have gleaned from. So I want to do that for others in a way that's been so empowering for myself. So that's true. But in listening, as I mentioned to you, I have felt humbled as I have listened to tons of TED Talks and different podcasts myself and reading that I've done to prepare for this discussion today. I've been humbled by the idea that I'm not as open to other people's ways of thinking as I should be. So it's made me introspect.
You're not perfect.
I don't live anywhere near perfect.
I'm just kidding. But it's really cool. It's like I'm, in the process of closing escrow. It's my first property, which is, exciting, but at the same time, extremely overwhelming. And I got so many responsibilities. I'm an entrepreneur, so obviously I run my own business. If I'm not on my A game, then my business can go down, and that's not even an option.
Yeah, you can't take a day off.
No, and I never will. But the point is, when I coach people and they say things come in my day that are unexpected and it's too overwhelming for me to focus on me time and finding my moments of truth and staying, stress-free, if you will, I was like, this is an opportunity to really embody all my coaching. And what I've done differently, which I've never really thought of doing because I didn't have to, is all the text messages that didn't really need to get answered right away, I would leave. I love that feature, voice memo on an iPhone. Hey, I just want to give you the heads up. I'm running from place to place. Send me your availability. Let's hop on a phone call, even if it's only for 5 minutes. I definitely care about you and I want to give you. So it's not being frantic that all these people are counting on me, despite all these new responsibilities I have with like paperwork and whatever. It's staying calm and keeping that strength underneath myself that I know very well, that I've worked on for many years, despite all the new things, and just being an open communicator to people so that people know that Jay-Z's a little busy.
Yeah.
Or productive is my favorite word. Okay, so that's an example. Rather than ignoring people and not giving them love or being, I can't really talk right now and just being like a little less than who I am, I'm just calm and collected. I'm myself and just explaining, look, this is a little bit of a rough patch with my timing, but I'm here for you and I want to give you a lot of myself because I do care about you. But in all actuality, I'm also a human being and there's only so much I can do. So humbling yourself and just taking a step back and not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed and, just do what you can and show up with your best, whatever your best is that day.
Yeah, that's great. And I think also in part of the daily goal setting that we've talked about in previous podcasts, how we time manage, one thing that I do every day is I list 5 just little kind of gestures of kindness.
That's nice.
And lots of times it's so easy just to shoot a text to somebody and compliment them on something, or just show appreciation for somebody, right? And it
very
takes a
nice.
second. I mean, literally just a few seconds to do, but hopefully that's empowering. Okay, and again, going back to the theme of living in a world that's very polarized right now. When we talk about diversity, this country was built on the strength of our diversities, right?
Yes.
We gathered people to build America from all nations, from all walks of life, from all ethnicities.
Indivisible.
And all
with liberty and
religious
justice for
orientations,
all.
right? All that was important. And the strength of America was melding this diversity into a powerful opportunity-seeking nation, right? And it's interesting now we look at diversity as something that threatens us in some way, right? Especially political diversity right now.
Right.
I mean, we're on A team or B team.
Right.
And that's really unfortunate, isn't it? Because
It
as human beings, if we search for commonalities, so that's one of the principles that we want to reinforce today. If we look for the commonalities, the things that make us the same, not the things that make us different, we find those. The old saying of you can find enough things about anybody to hate them, and you can find enough things about anybody to love them.
That's right.
Right? It's where you choose to place your focus. Well, we as a nation need to do that right now.
I agree with you, man.
Don't we?
100%. So how can we do that right now? Like, what's the very, very first step?
Okay. First of all, we choose, because it becomes overwhelming. How do we change the nation, right? What's the power of one? Okay. So if you've ever heard the story of the starfish, where the little boy is walking along the ocean and he comes to a place on the beach where all these starfish have been washed up overnight, and he knows that there's no way that he can get them all back in the ocean because they keep coming out of the ocean, right?
Yeah, and
They're just being washed up.
They have to get back in so they don't die, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's right. So he desires to start throwing starfish. So he takes the first starfish and he chucks it back in the ocean, and he takes another starfish and he throws it as far as he can back in the ocean. An older gentleman walks by and asks the little boy, "What are you doing? Don't you realize you can't save all these starfish?" And he said, "What difference do you think you're making?" And the little boy looked at the starfish he had in his hand. He says, "I'm going to make a difference to this one."
Yeah.
And so we have the power to make a difference within the sphere of the life that we're living.
Right.
And that's what we need to stay focused on, right?
Yeah. And it could start with our family,
and
our friends.
And when we talk about tolerance, can I just broach that real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay. We hear that kicked around all the time. We need to be tolerant, and we need to have tolerance for people that think differently, that subscribe to a different ideology or whatever, or religion or whatever, that are different than us. We should tolerate them. But I don't think that's really where we can stop on that line. Because to tolerate something is not to understand it, right? To tolerate it is to put up with it, right?
Right.
So there are times when we need to be tolerant. Like, we need to tolerate having to stand in a line to get our groceries, because there's nothing we can do about that, so we tolerate it. I was stuck in traffic trying to get here from Northern California to Southern California, right? So I have to tolerate that,
And
right?
what was my response to you?
What was your response?
Oh, obviously I didn't impact you.
Obviously I wasn't really listening. I pretended I was, please.
I just said, don't stress, get here safely.
You did. Yeah, you did. I do remember.
Okay, I mean, obviously, if I was like, we're going to be late, and, Mike's going to be, I didn't, because, they're very understanding people. So, it's one of those things that are out of our control, we just can't control. But go on.
Right. In that case, we tolerate. But as far as our relationships with human beings, in order to evolve as individuals, we need to try to understand, not tolerate. We need to seek for understanding and for empathy of people.
And remove judgment of people, because
Yes.
tolerance is, I'm doing you a favor by letting you be in my presence.
And we start there by acknowledging our commonalities. Because regardless of the way that we think, we have things in common as human beings on this planet. Number one, we all want to be happy. We're all searching for happiness, and we all want to make a positive difference. Now, we approach it different ways. But again, our diversity is our strength.
That's right.
So if we subscribe to ideology where there are certain tenets that are kind of like our bullet points for our ideology, I mean, that's great. I'm sure they're worthy bullet points or worthy intentions, but there's also other things that we're de-emphasizing that are important as well, right? That maybe the other part of your ideology focuses on.
Right.
So we need our diversity. We look at diversity as a strength, and we got to stop fighting against each other. And we have to love each other, find commonalities, and move forward to make the world continually a better place, because it really is. And in order to positively impact the people that are right around us, we choose to filter the information that we're receiving in the way that we look at the world. And we have to just accept or subscribe to the idea that the world's evolving and is a great place and is getting better all the time. Just like as individuals, we should look at our lives like that. Okay, maybe we don't like everything in our past, or maybe we're disappointed by some of the decisions we've made, or things that have happened to us, or things other people have done to us, or whatever. But we look at ourselves as an evolving human being, and our past doesn't need to equal our future, right? We have choice, and we have the ability to change our course to the better constantly in life. And that's really what we're built to do. And if you think of the world in the same light, that we're all solving to make this world a better place. Yeah, there's threats. There's always threats in the world, but there's also wonderful things. And those threats will die over time. And the wonderful things continue to gain momentum and power. We live longer today. We live healthier, better lives. Technology makes our lives more productive and gives us access to communicate in a way that we never have and to touch people in a positive way. As I mentioned to you, the effort towards banishing poverty has a long way to go, but is progressing in the right. There are so many things to be grateful for, and we talked about gratitude lists as a key to keeping it in a high state, right, and empowering us. We do the same thing to the world, being grateful for where the world is and where the world is going.
Yes.
And we choose to believe that, because if we choose to believe that way, to subscribe to that feeling, which is empowering, then we start gathering facts to support ourselves.
That's
just
right.
like if we choose to believe the world is going to heck in a handbasket, then we can start gathering ideas to why things are horrible and hopeless.
Right.
Well, let's not do that. That's not good for anybody.
Right.
There has never been a statue erected for a critic, right? Heroic people are optimistic, and they see the good and the possibility, and they see the evolution of things, and they move themselves and others in their sphere toward it.
You know, great speech. I want to give you a round of applause, George. That's phenomenal. But I do want to also add to what you just said about, it's almost like a peaceful coexistence. As a fitness expert, there's a lot of trainers in Los Angeles. And you know what? I think there's a place for us all. So don't you agree that it's really great to also utilize people's existences and find their best practices and almost commingle? Because if my intention is to break the chains of obesity in the country, I can't do it alone. And if people are hiring another trainer, that person may never hire me, so therefore I can't impact that person, but the person they hired can. So if I empower that other trainer, then technically my mission is indirectly being met through other individuals who have that same mission in mind.
Absolutely. We're connected.
We're all interconnected, no matter who we are, what we practice as far as our religious beliefs, our political beliefs. And really, George, you've really said some really great things. And I really want to now take that information and give some people usable tools right now. If, let's just say, they're just really down in the dumps. They watched whatever television, network, and it just made them feel really low. They hear this podcast and they're like, you know what? It's all great in theory. I'm just not feeling it. What is the first step? And I know we've had plenty of podcasts leading to this, but what can they do to be that change right now?
Well, the first thing, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, the first thing is to go ahead and create a gratitude list about what they're thankful for in the world that they're depressed about, right? Because that'll shift the way that they think.
Okay, so right away. Excellent.
Right. So we do the gratitude list, right? We want, and then we get focused on where we're going. We're grateful for this world that's given us all these opportunities, and we see the opportunity, or we have a vision of what our best self could look like. And then we make sure we focus on that plan. That gets us positive. Because again, whatever we focus on gets bigger in our life, right?
That's right.
So we got to focus on where we're going and what the blessings are now. We've talked about that as an individual, but we can look at that as a world, as the world, right? Even being grateful for ideologies that are different than ours.
Yeah.
Even that's contributing to the solution. We need people focusing on things that we're not focusing on.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's a part of this. That's a part of what makes America great. So instead of fighting against people that think differently, start appreciating them. Find the commonalities. Learn to understand, because there's understanding to be had for these people.
But a lot of people might be surrounded by people who fuel that fire of thought. So what can they do without disposing people, which is not the goal here? How can they still evolve on that path to where they want to go?
Because, Jay-Z, we talked about we have the choice of controlling content.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that relates to what we watch, right? What we read, and who we associate with. Again, we are not chained to people. If there are negative influences in our life, we can love, even if they're related to us, right? We can love people, but not spend time with people, right?
Or internalize their thoughts.
Or even, I mean, we have to surround ourselves. We have to find the people that support us in our life mission, right? And if we've chosen to go to a higher level, which I think people listening to this, we've all chosen, whatever our next highest level is, that's where we're headed, right?
Yeah.
So we need to surround ourselves with people that are going to support that. And having a negative attitude on the condition of the world or the direction the world's going is not going to empower us. So we need to separate. We love those people. We have the cordial conversation with those people. We support them in ways that we can, but we cannot be seduced by their thinking.
Right.
So gather around, and we have that choice. Who do we spend time with? Who do we reach out with? Who do we constantly associate ourselves with that are going to support us in the way that we want to live?
Right. And we respect them as human beings. So now how do people find new people that align? Like there's this new word being used, tribe. You know, I found my tribe, which is great. But how do people, like what are some venues that people can turn to find like-minded people on the same mission?
Yeah, that's totally great. And that's a good question. It's not going to be like a cookie cutter answer because everybody's in different environments, right? But like we can reach out. Listening to, this podcast, we're going to give you a shot in the arm every time, right? We're going to encourage you forward, right? So here's an example. You can make us a part of your day. I mean, I was telling Jay-Z on the way over here that I listen to these podcasts every day because they're 20 to 30 minutes long. And it's a perfect... It's what I already know to be true, right? Obviously, this is material that I'm expressing as a part of our joint venture here, but it's what I need to reinforce every day to take me from this level of vibration to this level of vibration, right? Every day on my way to work, I listen to one of these. They're perfect. So plug into that. Always be reading something that's empowering. I'm going to plug again, The Science of Getting Rich, because Wallace Wattles, again, that's a 1910 book. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
But Wallace Wattles, his premise was the world is good and getting better. And that was, 150 years ago. So, or not 150 years ago, but over 100 years ago. So that being said, the world has evolved so much since then. People are living longer. Technology has exploded, right? Our ability to go and to do and to understand and to gain knowledge is like, it's just multiplied incredibly.
Yeah.
Right? And so, the world is so much better than it was in his day on all the metrics that we've just touched on today. Okay, how much better is it going to become? If he believes in this, the world is constantly getting better and evolving. And the problems that we see are temporary, and they're being fixed through this evolutionary process of the world, just like we are meant to evolve as individuals.
Yeah.
So, I reread that book over and over again because it puts my mind in an empowering state, in a way to view the world and to filter the content that I'm barraged with all the time. So
I love that.
So we have the choice of subscribing to those ways to educate ourselves and to think.
And you know what I want to bring up? Hurricane Harvey, we had so much going on in the nation, and it's amazing how Hurricane Harvey hit and the other hurricanes hit, and look at how this country came together to support all of those individuals. Let me tell you something, like I literally was so sad for days and days. I'm like, I literally wanted to fly to Texas, and I'm like, I don't even know how I can do that. I mean, I have to work. I run my own business. So I was trying really hard to figure out ways to be effective in this. And, what started to creep up on social media was, hey, I sell this hair product and all proceeds of profit will go directly to Hurricane
it's
Harvey.
beautiful.
I started purchasing products. I started to give $10 to every organization, and I just spread the wealth, because I don't know where the money's going to go, but I know it's eventually going to go somewhere. So it's finding ways to make it happen right now, even though you can't physically do what you would like to do,
Right.
and just doing what you can do. So what's another place that people can go to meet great people? I mean, I know another place would be charitable organizations. So maybe people can look in their community.
Absolutely.
And if they're introverted, maybe even if they go for 15, 20 minutes, at least they made the contribution.
Sure.
Maybe they meet one person.
Absolutely. And they're going to be like-minded people that want
Yes.
to contribute, that are looking to give back on a higher level than just, a selfish purpose. So like I
Yes.
mentioned to you, I was at this fundraiser for Big Brothers Big Sisters last night. 900 people there, and just our small table. I think there were 30 tables. We raised $4,000 in contributions, towards that program, and it was 120,000 or whatever that was raised
great.
by all these people selflessly wanting to support this program, because every child deserves a support system and a role model, right? And someone
That's
to
right.
believe in them. And so that's a noble effort. So decide what causes you feel passionately about and align yourself with those causes, and you will automatically meet new associations that think the way that you think and empower you. And then
Yeah.
read the stuff that you need to read. It's the materials everywhere to look at the
Yeah.
world in a positive light as evolving towards something better, not something worse, right?
Yeah.
And then to examine the people in your sphere of influence that are maybe energy suckers and negative influences, and distance yourself. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean you
I
don't.
know what you mean.
Yeah, you want to be polite to them and you want to love and support them, but you
Yes.
you can't be part of who they're feeding all the time, right?
Right.
And look for people, in any of our spheres of influence, we're going to find some people that just automatically make us feel better being around them.
Right.
Identify those people, list them down, and spend time with those people. Reach out to them, text them, call them, email them,
Yeah.
communicate with those
Give 'em
people,
love.
right?
Give
That's
'em
right.
love.
And then make sure that you are creating gratitude lists, not just about things you're grateful for, but things that you're grateful for in the world, maybe not related to you, but in the general state of the world that you
Right.
see as huge positives. And I know we got to wrap this up, but
We could talk all day about
we could.
this.
It's powerful, and it's so timely, because
Yeah.
this world is kind of, everything works on a pendulum, and we go from states in the world where maybe we focus on certain things as a human community.
Yeah.
And right now we're very polarized. And in order to just live a happier existence, we need to do that differently.
I agree.
And so this is our 2 cents on that theme.
And it starts with you.
It does. Thanks, Jay-Z. You're awesome. See you guys next time.
This has been Fit Because, hosted by Jennifer Zerling.
And George Veter. Be sure to follow us on social media at Fit Because Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And for past episodes, be sure to visit our website at fitbecause.com.
Also, please subscribe to our show on iTunes and be sure to rate and comment. You may always request topics for our subsequent episodes.
And if you love this episode, please share it with someone you love so that we can continue spreading our mission to help people be fit.
Until next time, take care of yourself and know that your future is
Fit because.